would like to call to order the study session for the City Council for the City of Wheatridge, Colorado for Monday, December 21, 2020. We just have one item on our agenda tonight, which is item number 1, building materials use tax exemption for public housing authorities. And as we do every meeting, I would like to start with public comment on this item. If you're a member of the public and would like to comment on item number 1, now is your opportunity to do that. And you may, we're in the Zoom format, and so you may go to the participant icon at the bottom of your screen and click on that, and you will see raise hand. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand, and Ms. Scheck will bring you into the meeting. And I will ask Ms. Scheck if anyone has raised their hand.
We do have one hand, or we have 2 hands raised now. First we have Aaron Clokey, and then we'll have Guy Namiach.
Okay, if you would bring Aaron in, and when you join our meeting, if you would please give us your first name and your last name, and if you would spell your last name for the record and give us your address, then you will have 3 minutes to speak with us. So Aaron, if you would please go ahead.
Thank you, and my apologies for the misidentification on Zoom. This is actually Amy Case, A-M-Y-C-A-S-E. I am the Chief Financial Officer with Foothills Regional Housing, and Aaron is one of our colleagues at that agency using his link, so apologize for the misidentification. So council members and staff, we just wanted to, first of all, let you know that we appreciate your acknowledgement of our mission and our unique position as a quasi-governmental and nonprofit entity under state statute. We wanted to just take a moment to remind you briefly of some of the additional community benefits and investment that Foothills Regional Housing provides the city of Wheatridge, both public benefits and direct citizen support. So I would remind you that Foothills Regional Housing's headquarters is located within the city of Wheatridge. We expend millions of dollars of payroll and vendor supplier business annually within the city of Wheatridge and its neighboring communities. Also, besides seeking to increase the supply and quality of affordable housing within the city, we offer other services to citizens, including the provision of multiple millions of dollars annually of local rental assistance, housing navigation services for our most vulnerable citizens, and emergency home repairs, all of which support our mutual goals of the achievement of housing stability, better citizen health outcomes, and reduced public expenditures within the city. Last but not least, a brief comment on the financial impact per the staff memo. Expanding the exemption categorically to all housing authorities that operate within the city limits, we just wanted to point out that that's really not a large blank check. Housing authorities are jurisdictional entities that can only operate within specified geographic jurisdictions unless they enter into an intergovernmental agreement with another housing authority in another jurisdiction. So it's unlikely that you would have other public housing authorities operating without consent within the jurisdiction. So that's the end of my comments, and thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Case. Ms. Schilling, do we have additional speakers?
Yes, we do have Guy Namiach on the line.
Okay, Mr. Namiach, if you'd join us, please introduce yourself and give us your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Guy Namiach, N-A-H-M-I-A-C-H, 3650 Ward Road, Wheatridge. So as Ms. Case stated, I love all the services that we get, but it's also at a cost. Just a reminder. So I own a rental property next to the Caesars Center, and I'm the PTA president over there. And so the next door does get a tremendous amount of police activity, firefighters activity, and ambulance activity. So it's not that it's all for nothing. We do provide a service to that center. And just a reminder that somehow we have to pay for those services out of our taxes. So I am sure that somehow in the grand scheme of it, the equation of the tax services, that it's being done, but just a reminder that we are providing a lot of services to that area. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schilling, additional speakers with their hands raised.
Yes, we do have one more with their hand raised, Lori Rosendahl.
Okay, Ms. Rosendahl, if you'd please introduce yourself and give us your address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, Lori Rosendahl. I am the CEO of Foothills Regional Housing, also known as Jefferson County Housing Authority. And just to follow up on the previous comment, part of what we are doing is trying to make a better Caesar Square. Caesar Square was designed in a very old-fashioned, very accessible way, and we're trying to create a new Caesar Square that will include a community center, a place for us to go work with folks, and also to make the apartment complex a little easier for folks to navigate through, but also less easy for people to run through it and cause problems, which is when we talked with the police department was the biggest problem. It really wasn't our folks, it was folks from neighboring communities or whatever using it as kind of a thoroughfare and a drag strip. So we are working on that. That's been part of our plan for this property. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And also thank you for taking the time to address this issue. That's all.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight. Ms. Schilling, any additional hands raised in the Zoom format?
No additional hands raised. We do have a phone called in as well, with the last 4 digits of 1095.
Okay, if there are any other members of the public on the telephone who would like to speak under citizens' right to speak on the agenda item tonight in our study session, you may do so now. You would need to unmute yourself and we'll recognize you into the meeting. Okay, I don't hear anybody else for public comment. Thank you very much, members of the public who have joined us for the comments. And with that, we will move on to agenda item number 1, which is building materials use tax exemptions for public housing authorities. And I will go to Mr. Dahl for a staff report.
I will start, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
I mean, yeah, Mr. Goff, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We do have Mr. Dahl, our city attorney
Okay.
here, and he's available for questions, but we also have Jeff Wilson. He's with Mr. Dahl's office and is the attorney on this case. But I'll give it a quick introduction and turn it over to Jeff, and then we'll take any questions that you may have. But the city's of Wheat Ridge's code of laws currently requires that all entities pay a building use tax. We have, though, exempted the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority and the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal Authority for any of their projects. We did have I had a discussion with a previous council, I think even before maybe any of you were on council, and asked for clarification on this, on the use tax exemption. And at that time, again, this was several years ago, they wanted to keep this the way it was and not provide any exemptions. But we have a new council and things are a little different. And as your staff memo mentions, the state did provide a state exemption for housing authorities for building materials use tax. And as Mr. Wilson will discuss, City of Wheat Ridge is a home rule city, and city council can determine what it's going to tax and what it's going to exempt. and state statute does not override a city's home rule charter. So we do have a request though from the Foothills Regional Housing, which was, they're doing business as Foothills Regional. They are the Jefferson County Housing Authority. And as a couple of the speakers mentioned, they do quite a few projects in Webridge, and they are currently working on the Caesar Square project that you may be familiar with. We, City Council did allocate two rounds of private activity bonds to the Housing Authority to help them with that project. And it's a great project. We're excited. They are working on that. They pulled permits for that project and paid the building use tax on that. In their minds, by mistake, the contractor or whoever pulled the building permits paid the building use tax, and they came back to the city and asked for a refund of that use tax because they believe that they are exempt under the state statute. Our finance staff denied that refund, and I had a discussion with Lori Rosendahl, the executive director of the Housing Authority, and let her know that we'd be bringing this forward to City Council to discuss, to see if City Council would like to entertain an exemption specifically for public housing authorities. So with that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Wilson and let him talk about his research on this and what the state statute says and what the city's charter says, or code. Jeff?
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you, Patrick. That was a very good summation of where we are. Just Patrick said, the exemptions granted by the state to its sales tax do not extend to home rule municipalities. We have considerable authority under the Constitution to say what we tax and what we do not tax. So here, as regards this ordinance, we have the authority to say what is exempt and to say when those exemptions begin. This proposed ordinance would take effect and would grant an exemption forward from July 16th of this year. That makes the legislation retroactive, which is not favored but legal. Without getting too much into the weeds, the state constitution says that retrospective legislation is prohibited, and I've done some research and clarified and am satisfied that this is retroactive legislation, so that we're good constitutionally. This would also authorize the refund of funds already collected, so it would resolve the refund dispute with Foothills as well, or provide authority for that refunding. With that, I'm here mostly to answer questions. You've been pretty well briefed on this between Patrick and the memo that was included.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. With that, we will open it up to questions from council. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps staff could tell us what they have found that municipalities around us do in these situations.
I think it's mixed and a mixed bag. I can tell you that the city of Arvada does not charge well, they have a building use tax. I probably shouldn't say that. It might get you all confused. I know they don't. I don't think they have a retail professional use tax in Arvada. Lakewood, I do know. Lori Rosendahl sent me a letter that they had. I believe their code is the same as ours, but they've been providing an annual exemption for the housing authority that serves the city of Lakewood. So I believe they didn't amend their code, but on an annual basis, the city manager provides a letter to their housing authority saying that they are exempt from building use tax. And I don't know if Jeff and Jerry has any intel on other cities across the state.
I myself didn't look into what other cities were doing. I can assure you that none of them are exempting these sorts of transactions by virtue of the state legislation. However, in order to do an exemption at the home rule municipal level, some sort of legislative action would be required, in my opinion.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Stites?
To kind of piggyback off of Mr. Namiash's question from the comments earlier, we do have to still service these areas. Is there built-in funds for the police or anything like that that we have if we don't get this income from these properties?
No, not specifically. You know, we have a lot of nonprofits in Wheat Ridge that don't pay. Well, they would pay a building use tax, but they don't pay any property taxes or any other taxes typically. So we're servicing a lot of properties in Wheat Ridge that don't necessarily pay their fair share, but you know, I think one way you could look at it, they are providing a public service to our community and our residents. If that's one way you want to look at it, they may not be covering the additional cost of police and fire, but they are also providing a public service.
Thank you.
Ms. Stosman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So how many other organizations within our community and the community abroad would receive this exemption? Like, do you know offhand how many organizations would be considered a public housing authority?
In my understanding, it would just be Foothills. That's the only public housing authority that's providing housing authority services within the Wheat Ridge boundaries.
Okay, and are there
besides the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority?
Okay, and are there any other organizations that could come into Wheat Ridge if we allow for that categorically to be exempted?
You know, maybe Lori or somebody from the Foothills could speak to that if council's okay with them speaking. I don't honestly understand how those boundaries work. Looks like Lori's hand is up. I will.
Yes, would you like, Ms. Rosendahl, if you would like to speak to that matter?
Oops, you were unmuted for a second.
Sorry, I got kicked out for a minute.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. So thank you for that question. The answer is likely not. If they did go outside of their jurisdictional boundary, let's just say Arvada Housing Authority wanted to build a development in Wheat Ridge, they would have to come to you and get an intergovernmental agreement, and you would have to approve that. It's also really difficult for them to secure financing and get approval from their own city to move outside their city boundaries, because they really are supposed to be serving their own city. So they likely won't, they're not going to come into Wheat Ridge and serve Wheat Ridge when they're supposed to be serving Lakewood. You know, their city council is not going to be happy with that. So likely not. And if they did, you would have to approve the intergovernmental agreement, because we are considered a governmental entity under state statute.
And so what about state housing authorities?
We do have a state housing authority, but they don't do any development. They only provide service dollar. They provide funding and service dollars and vouchers.
And they aren't within the definition set forth in the ordinance either. This only describes local housing authorities, so that that would take care of that eventuality as well.
Okay, thank you.
I might add, you know, without getting too far afield, that I was skeptical of the Lakewood approach that Patrick referred to earlier, because I believe the exemption in Lakewood is granted by a letter from the city administrator. And I just don't think that's according to Hoyle. I think what is being suggested here is the proper way to do that. It's a tax exemption from an otherwise applicable portion of your tax code. And so the exemption has to be of equal stature. So.
Ms. Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Patrick, can you just kind of remind us, what was the last project that the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority did in Wheat Ridge? Was it the Fruitdale?
Yes, that would have been their last you know, I mean, they did not act as the contractor. You know, a private entity constructed the project. I'm trying to think if we exempted them. I think we did, because, you know, the city was contributing so much finances to that project to make it happen. I think part of that was an exemption of a reduction of the use tax.
And then is the Webridge Housing Authority, as I understand it, they're not very active right now. Like, don't have really any money, or they're not really activated in our commundy right now.
And they don't, not really right now, because yeah, they put most of their capacity into the Fruitdale project, but they don't act as a developer anyway. The Foothills Regional Housing is our housing authority that develops projects for us. Our housing authority has never done that, really never has the capacity to do that. The Foothills has the capacity to issue bonds and get tax credits and private activity bonds. Our housing authority really never had that capacity to actually construct.
So in general, the Foothills Housing Authority is the only housing authority that can offer lower income housing and services to help with, like, with the rental, you know, rent assistance. And so we're the only entity that's doing that in our community currently.
Correct. For a public entity, there are some private entities that do construct low income housing, but you know, maybe Lori could speak to this again, but they don't have a voucher system, but they do. There are some companies, private companies that for profit that build low income housing.
Thanks for that. I just would like to say that I think that offering affordable housing in our community is important. Making sure that it's safe and clean, where people can learn and to become more stronger, self-reliant, be able to move up through the process, I think is important. And I'm in support of moving on with this and exempting them. And I'm in support of not doing that annually on an administrative level, but for us to do it in our code.
Mr. Goff, do we have an IGA with Foothills now?
I don't know if we do. Lori, we don't have any type of IGA, do we?
I believe we do. And
Do we?
it's very old, and we probably should take a look at it. It's been on my list of things to do, to look at all my IGAs, because we are a countywide housing authority, so we have IGAs in several communities. So yes, we probably should take a look at it, but I believe we do have an old IGA.
Okay. If you need one to operate in our city, we probably should get that together.
Yeah, I think it's still good. I think it's just really old, probably needs some tweaking.
And I suppose my follow-up question is, does that IGA say anything about use taxes?
I don't believe it does. And I probably should have checked that, because now that you all said IGA, we all said IGA a few times, my mind was buzzing about that. If I could find it right now, I'd be looking at it. I wasn't at home. I'm sorry.
That complicates the issue, but thank you very much. And I think the IGA may stand looking at.
And I was able to pull it up, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it looks like the last edition was from 2001.
Oh, yeah, it's old.
So yeah, probably before Lori and my time, but we'll look into that.
Okay. Additional questions from council on this item? Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seeing no other questions, I would like to ask for consensus to direct staff to move forward with the language for the tax exemption for the Foothills Housing Authority, and to exempt them from their use taxes.
Okay, let's raise hands if you think that we have, if you're in favor of that proposal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's everybody who's here.
Could be everybody. It's hard for me to count. I'm not very good with numbers. When I get over 5, I run out of a hand.
I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Hutchinson and then Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as far as Foothills go, then as far as the code goes, would they be listed in there with their name along with Wheatridge Housing and also Renewal Wheatridge and Public Schools, to where that would be the entity that would be able to, get the exemption, and then there wouldn't be an issue if there would be other people coming in trying to get an exemption.
If I might,
Mr. Wilson.
one of the issues that is being addressed in this particular ordinance is to not specifically identify by name the beneficiaries, as is covered in Patrick's memo, but rather to define the category of entity that is the beneficiary of the exemption. This to avoid constitutional limitations on what's called special legislation, where you do just what we're talking about, call out the name of the beneficiary. So in order to avoid that pitfall, this proposed ordinance uses the generic references. So that's just by way of explanation.
But having said that, it's common in drafting legislation, even though it's couched in generic terms, to have the definition of the generic housing authority be worded in such a way you can be sure that it's narrowly targeted in the way that you desire. Yes. The state legislature is very good at that, describing something, and frankly only occurs in one place, with language that is general and does not name someone, but has that effect.
Okay, I have another question. From the letter that was written from Holland and Hart about other home rule jurisdictions have recognized this exemption, I'd like to know, what are the other home rules? Not, there's some or whatever. I'm just kind of curious because this is part of being home rule, is that we kind of make our own rules and things. And they're stating that there are other jurisdictions that do have this exemption. I'd be interested in knowing who they are.
Ms. Hutchinson, we can, for first reading and public hearing, we can do some research and provide that information before you guys consider this on final. Apologize.
Because right now, yes, I see that the home rule cities that do participate in this are Broomfield and City of Denver. That's the only thing that is that. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
We'll have to check. One point I would make, and Jeff can correct me, but I think I'm right in saying that we read the Holland and Hart letter, and respectfully, there may be home rule cities that are granting an exemption. That doesn't mean those home rule cities felt compelled to grant that exemption because of the Holland and Hart analysis or any state legislation. Home rule cities can choose to grant or not, just as you are choosing tonight to direct that it be granted. But that doesn't say that you felt that you were compelled, because in fact you aren't. So I think it would not be good to read too much into that statement. I think maybe they were hoping you would read a little extra into that statement. But we can certainly do the research to find out.
Yeah, if we can help at all, absolutely happy to do that. But Jerry's right. You guys get to make up your own minds. You're not compelled by the General Assembly to grant tax exemptions at Wheatridge. Thank goodness.
Thank you. Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was actually going to ask staff if they could compile what our neighboring cities are doing in this kind of a situation, as well as a review of that IGA. I don't know if you need to necessarily include it in our packet, but Not sure if that needs to be addressed before something like this would be addressed, but I did also just think of a question as far as the Jefferson County Housing Authority moved to Foothills region. So is that more than just Jefferson County, or was that just like a brand and name change to kind of recognize or be broader? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Lori. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. Do you want Lori to answer that question?
Whoever, Ms. Rosendahl, if you have that answer.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. It is just a DBA. So we are still Jefferson County Housing Authority. We are just DBA Foothills Regional Housing. So we, our jurisdiction has not changed. If we did want to work in another jurisdiction, we would have to go through the whole process. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does that conclude that item? Mr. Miller.
Thank you. And Mr. Dahl, please tell me if this question is out of line considering a potential hearing. In the request that Foothills sent the city for the hearing today, identified the amount of the overpayment and also is requesting interest and the amount that was overpaid. If council were to approve this exemption, would that remove the city in those additional?
Really hard to hear, Chris.
Yeah.
About that question, but do we need to pay the interest? I think was your question.
Yes, I apologize for that.
There you go.
I'm not certain. I'm really not prepared to have a good answer for that here tonight on the spot, but we'll certainly review that. If I only heard about 75% of the question, but if that was where if we were going to reach back and be retrospective for what Jeff was saying, if that's the nature of your question, I would expect that would mean that we would, and Jeff can confirm, that would mean that the city would take the position that as of that earlier date, the exemption was in place. And if that were the case, you wouldn't have interest or penalties for having not paid something that was not payable as of a certain given earlier date. Is that?
No, I'm sorry, and it's hard to hear me, but actually, the Foothills is requesting interest earnings on its payments that were given to the city.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's something I want to confer on, and I'm not comfortable answering that question.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't want to answer that question publicly until I've had a chance to review. I just am not.
We withdraw that. I'll just tell you right now, I did not even see that in there, and I apologize. We will withdraw that request. I don't know if our attorney threw it in there and I missed it. I read that. That is not an issue.
Okay, that's great. I just don't want to process a case in a city council study session. I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I just thought I would use this opportunity to bring that up and hopefully save the city a little bit of money.
Okay. We'll take that issue offline and you can do some research on that if you would, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Ms. Rosendahl, for joining us to answer some questions on that item. That concludes our action item tonight. We will go to staff reports. So Mr. Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates, just to let council know. I brought this up last week, I believe, or our last meeting. The state legislature and the governor approves several bills for COVID response to help numerous entities and individuals. And one of those programs, or one of those bills, was funding for small business grants. And I think I told you last week that the county, Jefferson County, was considering if they're going to opt into that grant program and administer those funds. And they have decided to opt in. So the county will be administering those grant dollars for our businesses. So we'll do everything we can. I think Ms. Hoppy asked how we can make sure that we're reaching out to all of our businesses so that they're aware of this new grant program, and we're working on that. The county has until January 8th, I believe, to apply for funding, and the funds become available, I believe, sometime in February. So good news for our businesses. I believe grants are anywhere up to $7,000, depending on your type of business. So that will offer some relief here next year. And then also, we're working very diligently with Jefferson County on the 5-star certification program. If you're all familiar with that, the state authorized this program to allow counties to certify their businesses so that they can operate under a different level of the COVID dial. Jefferson County is still in the red level of the COVID dial, and that means our restaurants are closed to in-house dining. And if we can get this program approved by the state and Jefferson County, restaurants and bars and other establishments of the same can operate under level orange, which allows them, I think, back to 25% in-house capacity. And then if Jefferson County gets back to a level orange as a whole, anybody that receives a 5-star certification can operate at the level yellow. And that just reduces some of the restrictions. So it's somewhat of a complicated process to get this set up. The county is currently not eligible to be under this program. You have to have 2 weeks of sustained decreases in COVID cases, and we're working on that. I think we have a few more days before we hit the 2 weeks. You also have to have a positivity rate of under 90%, and we're currently under 90%. And then you also have to have an ICU capacity under 90% also of hospital beds. So the county's moving in the right direction to meet all of those requirements. And then I just got an email a few minutes ago from the county administrator, county manager, and they are working on getting this program set up as soon as the county's eligible so that businesses can apply and hopefully open back up. So a couple good things for our community, and you all heard that Congress also passed or is voting tonight, I believe. I'm not sure if they voted. What's that? You okay, Amanda?
I apologize.
No worries.
My mother just
okay.
Trying to keep her distanced.
So there'll be additional funding coming from the federal government also to help businesses and individuals in our community. So quite a few resources coming online to help our community. And with that, Merry Christmas to everybody. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Goff. We will go to elected officials reports. Who would like to go first with a report? Okay, we'll go to Mr. Kirkpatrick and then Mr. Stites.
Just a quick shout out to the Public Works Department. Since I live right on the edge of the city, I see what goes on in both Wheat Ridge and Lakewood. This morning, people were slipping and falling on Oak Street in Lakewood, while the Oak Street in Wheat Ridge was clear and dry. And we owe them our thanks. The next time you see one of those guys, thank them. I hope everyone in earshot, especially all of you, enjoy a very healthy, safe, and happy holiday season. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next year. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Kirkpatrick. Council Member Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't take too long, but I just wanted to thank Stober Elementary and Miss Brooks' 5th grade class who had me in last week to talk about helping small businesses, and they're doing an entire project on how they can reach out and help small businesses. So we talked about how they can work on buying local and using social media and doing a lot of different things like that. So I was really impressed with some of the answers I got. So thank you to Stober Elementary. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Stites. Additional reports. Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. And, you know, I hope that with everything that's gone on in 2020 that we've learned to appreciate, you know, what it is that matters most, our friends, our family, our freedom, and our health and happiness. And I just want to thank all of you for your hard work throughout this. I know it's been really challenging, but the city's done a great job at reacting and responding to the needs of the community. Our small businesses rallied together and supported each other. And I think it's really a testament to the kind of community that Wheat Ridge holds, and why it's such a wonderful place to live. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Additional reports from council, Ms. Hutchinson.
Not a report. I just would like to say Merry Christmas to everybody and just please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional words from council, Ms. Weaver.
I was just curious, Mr. Stites, thank you for doing that with the elementary. Did you teach him the phrase?
Actually, I did.
Good.
Yes, I did. Although
Good.
they're in Lakewood, so I had to like sell it a little bit more, but.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, what is it? Now I need to make sure I note it. If you can find it, buy it in Wheat Ridge.
Find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, happy holidays to everyone.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate the discussion tonight. Mr. Miller.
Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. I just wanted to echo everyone's sentiments and wish everyone a happy holiday and Merry Christmas. And remind everyone to keep shopping local. I had the opportunity today to go to the Upwood Shopping Center. It was very busy and it was really happy to see many people out and supporting local businesses. I participated in all 3 rounds of funding for our small business grants, and reading all of those applications was very, very, it was hard to go through them, and there's lots of people struggling, and many small businesses are still on the verge of not being here next year. So just a general reminder to keep supporting them while we can. And furthermore, I'd like to say, if you can't find it in Wheat Ridge, you don't need it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Any further comments tonight before we close out the meeting? Okay, well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Great meeting. Thank you all for being here. I would like to have a shout out to all of the 5th graders. I was involved in a pep rally, 5th grade pep rally with Chief Murtha this week with all the 5th graders in Wheat Ridge, and we've got a great bunch of kids coming up, future leaders for our community. And I want to thank everyone for inviting me to participate in that. It was a great event. We are now coming into it's the shortest day of the year, so we should look forward to the days slowly increasing, and we will come out of this darkness. It's been a tough year, but we are all in this together, and we're taking care of one another, and we will overcome. So please be safe out there. Keep your distance from other people, and practice good hygiene, and keep yourself safe. We will hope you all have a very happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And we will see you next year. We will not meet next week, and we will be back at the 4th of January. So thank you all very much. We will adjourn. Good night.